I think we also have strong data on chain. I think we can experience a supply squeeze because a lot of people are holding, and actually what is getting traded is very, very low, what is basically accessible Bitcoins. I think also miners partially holding back and do not sell too much at a point in time. And then also I think from a macroeconomic standpoint is like money printing continues, right? I mean, we had the Fed more or less saying that they still keep thinking about tapering. I think what they are thinking of the entire year, but they are not doing it because they know that the markets are not ready yet to go off it. And this is what is another big reason for the stock market and the crypto market to see new all-time highs.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Weekly podcast, the show where we interview the top movers and shakers in the crypto industry. Today, I'm joined again with Eric Kasanowski, the co-founder and chief investment officer at Decentral Capital. Eric, welcome to have you.
Hey, Mike, always a pleasure talking to you.
Nice, and you as well. This is going to be another market update show, so we'll talk about what's happening right now in the crypto ecosystem. And so where do you want to start? I mean, we just had a pretty big plunge a few days ago, and I think it was in response to some news that came out of China. Do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, I mean, if we look back almost a month ago where we had another market update, we were already saying that September most likely will be a negative month. And I mean, historically speaking, it is a negative for crypto, and it's also a negative for the stock market or for the traditional markets. And in order that the market goes down, it needs some kind of news, to drive the story. And in that case, it was Evergrande, and it was very interesting that it was coming again from China. I mean, it's almost like everything that seems like that is beating hard on crypto is coming from China this year, unfortunately. But no, this was very big driven, and we saw that the market went down, I think, from almost 53,000 close to the 39,000 really shortly, I believe, on Tuesday. But the good news is that the fear slowly starts to settle. I think China and Evergrande is going from some kind of a restructuring program of figuring out how to deal with the debt and how to deal with the situation. And I believe that a lot of people who were investors in the company will lose a good portion of their money from China, as well as also from the outside of China. But I think China is certainly in the highest interest to protect the people itself, right? And this is why they do not want to let it fail.
Yeah. And for those who don't follow the space quite as closely, Evergrande is one of China's largest real estate developers, actually second largest real estate developer in China. And what happened as of recently is Evergrande has collateralized the properties that they own and has over $300 billion in debt. And unfortunately, as of this month, they are not able to service that debt. And so economists everywhere have been speculating if this is going to be kind of the pin that pops the bubble and sets us off on a next global recession. And so the Evergrande stock plummeted 85% overnight, and over 1 million people who have invested in properties that haven't been built yet are now in the lurch and trying to figure out what's going on. So this kind of macroeconomic uncertainty has filtered into the crypto world, and we've seen not only traditional markets but Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies sell off in the short term. So as you said, Eric, the worst I think has come. Fears have started to settle down, and even as of today, which is recording on September 23rd, we've got a big pump back up into the green. So a recovery rally, if you want to call it that.
I would say it will probably take a little bit longer. I'm not saying that it will be a straight line up. I still even see for the end of the September a negative or maybe a very, very slight green close in terms of the monthly candle. What I said, but I would say going then into October, November, December, I think we should see a little bit more steam coming, and I think then we should have a lot of positive news. Hopefully, maybe the hope of a Bitcoin ETF dropping in October, I think also the quarterly releases will coming up also pretty soon, from Q3. Maybe there is a surprise in there where maybe a big investor or company stepped in and also bought some Bitcoin during the dip. And yeah, I think there are some really exciting times ahead of us.
Yeah, it's funny to think that, in crypto, we can be so overtly optimistic in a major price rally that can happen in such a short amount of time. But it's traditionally been the case that the last, Q4 has been a good quarter for Bitcoin, and likely because of the reasons you had just mentioned, with new earnings releases coming out and reporting from companies. Are there any other reasons that you think the Q4 might be a good reason for a rally? I know this tends to be the sentiment, especially these days.
It is certainly the sentiment what needs to, after the little shakeout, needs to grab and, as I said, build up again. And then I think once we breach certain key resistance levels, I would say it's certainly around maybe 55,000. And of course, once we should go over the all-time high, what is around maybe 63, 64,000, then I think everything is open and we are off to more or less fulfill the stock to flow model, what predicts almost 100K by the end of the year. And I think we can go there. I mean, that being said, of course, the odds are always against us, right? I mean, it's certainly more likely that we stay under 100K than go above it. But I think crypto, a lot of things are possible. And I think now that a lot of people, if you read especially crypto Twitter or other things, say it's going negative or they are unsure or, it's a bounce, or I think it is what the market needed, after the 2 months of going up back to 50,000, just to make sure we have a good sentiment. But that being said, I think we also have strong data on chain. I think we can experience a supply squeeze because a lot of people are holding, and actually what is getting traded is very, very low, what is basically accessible Bitcoins. I think also miners partially holding back and do not sell too much at a point in time. And then also, I think from a macroeconomic standpoint, is like money printing continues, right? I mean, we had the Fed more or less saying that they still keep thinking about tapering. I think what they are thinking of the entire year, but they are not doing it because they know that the markets are not ready yet to go off it. And this is what is another big reason for the stock market and the crypto market to see new all-time highs.
Yeah, and it's when you talk about tapering, it's an interesting predicament that the central banks have got themselves in, because now with interest rates have been so low for so long that the market is just used to having a very low rate of borrowing or cost of capital. And when they start to raise those interest rates, what it's been called is a taper tantrum, where the market starts selling off right away once a little bit of a correction has been made to the monetary policy, or to the fiscal policy. I think it's an interesting macro topic to cover. And I think what's really interesting to me is how much Bitcoin has now started to tie into the macro narrative. If you're a macro investor, you cannot ignore Bitcoin anymore. Can we talk a little bit about the correlation with Bitcoin in different markets? Because I know with this latest pullback, it was very correlated within the last 30 days to the NASDAQ, but it's not always that way. I think as Bitcoin becomes more of a macro scale investment strategy, it's going to start to have more of a correlation to the things that are happening in the global macro landscape. Do you agree?
I would agree with it. But also, I think we should keep in mind where the asset class is right now. And I know that a lot of people, like from a macroeconomic perspective, are like saying, or the media is saying, oh, we're having inflation. And it is true to a certain degree, right? Certain products went up. And I mean, we also have a deflation of the currency at the same time, right? Because we have the money printing and so on and so forth. But I would say if a lot of people would be really thinking that we have an inflationary scenario, meaning that whatever the inflation rate is this year, will happen again next year, and next year, we almost go into an hyperinflation scenario. I mean, I would not say to that extreme, but it's very, very aggressive. And you can see if people would believe this, especially also bigger investors, they would go into gold. And what gold is doing right now, it is just doing the opposite, right? I mean, people sell gold. And the reason why actually Bitcoin price is it's almost still, I would say, volatile, and also almost, I would say, tends to go up. It's because people do not know the value of Bitcoin yet. I think everybody tries to find out what is it worth it. And I think, the current price always goes to the value of an asset. Sometimes it overshoots, sometimes it undershoots. And I would say that probably the real value of Bitcoin maybe by the end of the year might be around maybe 80,000. I see this as a fair value. And, knowing that, Bitcoin usually overshoots, I can see that 100,000 are in range for that. And this is actually what drives right now the Bitcoin price. It's actually finding the real value. And then probably later on, as it becomes more mature, more futures, more derivatives, like more other layers are on top of it, I think it almost becomes a little bit more driven also from what the macroeconomics is doing, but it still will always have a little bit of an edge because it is decentralized and it has just so much more power than gold and other things.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. I know you're not a fortune teller and I can't ask you to predict the future, but there's some people that I hear calling for this bull market to be over in December or over, very close to the end of this year. I've also heard, a counter argument saying that, cycles are expanding and we might even see the bull market last until September or October of next year. Do you have any thoughts on where you think that top's going to come in?
I think it depends on a few reasons. I think if we really should go up, as we said, maybe December or January, then it depends how high we go and what really drives that narrative. If we get an ETF approval and let's say we shoot through, and I just say a crazy number, let's say we go to 200,000, I think it is very likely after that we will crash very hard, similar to 2017, where we have a 70% correction at least. If you go up to, let's say 100K, I still expect a little bit of a correction happening, but I do not necessarily would call it a crash. Maybe we go down to maybe 60,000 or maybe 70,000. Depends on how far we drop, but then we will go up again. This is my preferred scenario, and this is what I see most likely to happen. That the ETF approval will actually happen next year, and this will then basically spark another rally into the year. But I see more or less, if I would bet right now, a correction happening January, February, also just for simply tax reasons. A lot of people take profits in January, just to pay off the taxes from last year. And this is just usually what happens.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. And I think I like the way that you're thinking about this as it depends on how fast or the speed or the velocity of growth in Bitcoin. And what I like to reckon any markets to or correlate any markets to, or it's kind of like running a marathon. If you sprint really fast for the first 100 meters, you're going to have to take a break, catch your breath, slow down before you're going to be able to start running again. Whereas if you move up, or if you start to jog in a slow and steady pace and you work your way up to the finish line, you don't necessarily need to have those massive corrections. And I think what's happened in Bitcoin's past is we've had these massive parabolic run-ups. We've sprinted for so long, so fast, so far, that we've had these big 60, 70%, sometimes 80 or 90% corrections. So I would tend to agree that I would prefer the second scenario, where we have this kind of slow stumble all the way up to whatever the highs are. And I think that provides a lot more stability for the market as well, especially when we think about some of these larger actors, institutions starting to come in and purchase Bitcoin.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it is healthy. What I said, the thing with crypto is that it is still a little bit of a very speculative vehicle, especially in the Western world, right? And I mean, the reason why we exploded 2017 was not the fault of Bitcoin or the reason of Bitcoin. It was actually the ICO hype, right? And I mean, a similar thing can happen that, let's say, maybe DeFi or NFT or whatever the topic might be is exploding, and like always this becomes a little bit bubbly. It needs to cool off, and then what I said, it goes up again. But if it's driven healthy from some fundamentals and actually value of the asset, and what we're talking about Bitcoin is actually higher, than I think it is just absolutely reasonable that we see higher prices. So yeah.
So we've talked a lot about Bitcoin. Let's talk a little bit about Ethereum, because I know with Decentral Capital, you invest both in Bitcoin and Ethereum. What are your thoughts on, from here till, let's call it the end of the cycle, wherever that might be, What do you think the more valuable investment would be from between Bitcoin and Ethereum?
I mean, even this year, I would say Ethereum has already performed better than Bitcoin, and I still think it has an edge. Like, meaning if you're in Ethereum, you will have most likely the higher upside potential, and this is why we see a little bit of a higher gains than to Bitcoin. That being said, again, if really an ETF for Bitcoin specifically comes in, then I can see Ethereum a little bit underperforming for a certain time. But what I said, Bitcoin is the mother of the crypto. It goes up, all the others go up, and they usually tend to outperform Bitcoin because the asset is already so big, and it's just easier to, let's say, double an asset that is, let's say, 3,000 to 6,000, like even from the market cap also then speaking, right? Because Ethereum is also just smaller than Bitcoin in this case. But no, I think I would say absolutely Ethereum. I'm pretty more or less in line with KV Woods, where she's saying 60-40 is the ideal split right now between those two asset classes. And this is also what we see.
Yeah. So I've heard an interesting take on Ethereum. When we roll out Ethereum 2.0, as staking becomes available on Ethereum 2.0 nodes, you need 32 ETH to run a node, but you are able to start gaining some yield just by staking your Ethereum. And I've heard some people, including Cathie Wood, call the Ethereum staking rate the new kind of risk-free rate. And if you look at all the national bonds around the world that are negative yielding in real terms with inflation, there's a lot of money that now is looking to flow into a yield-bearing asset. And I think Ethereum has a great opportunity to capitalize on something like that if the rollout of Ethereum 2.0 goes smoothly, which is still very up in the air, and we still don't know the exact date that will come out.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with all what you said. For me, Ethereum, it is a little bit still hard to grasp what the value of it is. I think we can say it for Bitcoin, but for Ethereum is, why do I need the token? Why do I need ETH, right? And I mean, there are some use cases, right? Because it's the platform where everything else is getting built on, that we are using for DeFi, NFTs, any other operations. And it has value, right? But is the value right now really at, let's say, some people predict $10,000 per coin? Is it really that much worth? I want to say yes, because it's also what we believe, but I cannot really make that hard of an argument or use case, because I really need to see how that whole staking is playing out, how high the burning rate is, with also the new protocol that got implemented, through the years. And no one has really tested it, right? Like, no one did really change and made the move from proof of work to proof of stake. And I would say there is still a lot of uncertainty in it that can cause a lot of trouble down the road. And this is why I'm a little bit more cautious and keep a little bit of a closer eye on that asset specifically.
I would tend to agree with that. And the other thing I'd say for early investors or people that are just looking to get into Bitcoin or Ethereum, first I'd say, check out Decentral Capital and what these guys are doing, because actively managed Bitcoin and Ethereum funds have a lot of upside, especially with the volatility of the market. That said, I say, Bitcoin is an asset that has no competition at the moment. Nothing else in the market competes with Bitcoin on its core value propositions, which is sound, mathematically driven money in store of value. But there are a lot of competitors coming out that are chomping at the ankles of Ethereum. Solana, Cardano, Polkadot, Luna being, just a few. So there's a big kind of fight or contention for the new base level protocol, whereas Bitcoin doesn't have any competition. So if it's something that you just want to set it and forget it and, not have to worry about this anymore, Bitcoin is the safer asset. But the winner of the base level protocol war, or the one who gains the highest market share, probably does have higher upside potential in the long run than Bitcoin.
It is. I think one thing also that I want to add to it, the reason why we are also in Ethereum is because this is where I want to say shit gets done, excuse my English, but if like, I know that there is a lot of other platforms out there, and yes, they will find their space, like, or their niche where they are really good in, right? Like what Ethereum cannot provide, just the way how it is designed, for example. But I see it more likely that Ethereum is flipping Bitcoin, let's say, from a market value. Then I see it happening that Cardano, Solano, or anyone else that you have listed is actually a real threat right now to Ethereum. And this is, I would say, like, the others are very, very much still behind in terms of adoption. And not saying that the others will not have a use case, but I think the use case will not as big as people hope it will be.
Yeah. I would tend to agree with that. And it's very tough to, kick out an incumbent who has such a large network effect already, especially if they were years ahead in getting first to market. And the other really important thing that we should touch on for early investors is that these cryptocurrencies are valued based on the size of their network. So, even though a technology might come along that's better, faster, stronger, if it doesn't have the same network effect that the incumbent has, it won't succeed. And so, you've hit the nail on the head. Even though Ethereum has very high transaction fees and it's not as scalable as some of these other alternatives, it still has the network effect. And so, until that starts to change, there really isn't any competition that's that big of a threat at this current, moment in time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Eric, let's talk a little bit about Decentral Capital, because I know you guys just released a brand new program or an incentive for people to start investing in Bitcoin. What's going on?
Yeah, no, we just have an offer running right now till the mid of October that basically just gives 500 Bitcoin away, or up to 500 Bitcoin if you basically start investing with us. I think it's pretty easy terms, like if you need to have a minimum investment, if you want to use our portfolios, based on that you get, and you need to hold it for at least 6 months with us. After this, you get basically the sign-up bonus. It's more or less a little incentive to, like, reward people who are sticking with the company, and also just give them a fair chance or a little bit of something back, to the community, in the sense of trusting us, believing in us. And yeah, I think it is just always a good thing. And I think cryptocurrency makes it possible. And I think we want to give value back to our clients.
Awesome. And once again, that's $500 in Bitcoin, not 500 Bitcoin.
That is good.
For those that are
$500 in Bitcoin.
Yes. And to do that, you just go to decentralcapital.ca, sign up, and you'll receive your welcome bonus. Anything else down on the horizon for Decentral Capital that we should be on the lookout for? Or if you want to just give maybe a brief overview of what you guys do at Decentral Capital for those who are listening for the first time.
I mean, as you said it already, we are basically an active managed portfolio fund. We are taking care of Bitcoin and Ethereum for people who are really new to the asset class, as well as also do not want to always take a look at it or need help just simply investing into it. And this is what we are specialized for, right? I mean, we take you on your hand, we walk you through the entire process, and we, like what every portfolio manager on the traditional world is doing, we are doing specifically for crypto. And the idea is to create diversification and also to create alpha to your portfolio in the crypto space. And yeah, if you're interested in, just check us out, and we are very certain that we can help you.
Awesome. Well, Eric, it's always a pleasure chatting with you. I look forward to having you on again next month for a market update. Thank you so much for joining the show.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. Talk soon.